I'm so pleased to meet you. I'm Beth. I have been an executive assistant for 12 years. More recently, moved into an AI enablement program lead role at my company. I founded Vibe Coding for EAs because I just get so much joy from sharing the magic of AI with people. I love helping them unlock it and understand how it can make their life inside and outside of work better. So I hope we can at least do that with some folks here today. With all of that being said, I am not like professionally trained. I don't work for any of these frontier labs or AI companies. I'm learning every day, and keeping up with the features and the product releases honestly could be a full-time job within itself. So while I may work in these tools like day in and day out, I might not have the answer to every single question. So if you know something I don't, feel free to chime in. I love to learn, and anything I don't know, I just ask Claude for anyways.
You know something I don't just ask Claude for anyways. You know something.
Looks like we have some feedback here. If you could just make sure you're muted, that would be great. Okay. What you'll walk away with today is an understanding of what Claude Cowork is and when to use it. Next is confidence that you can do this on your own. And lastly is reflex and inspiration that once you experience the magic of Claude or of AI, that you can start asking how it can help with anything that comes across your desk. How we're going to get there, I'm going to cover some basics and show you a demo. Then you'll open Cowork and execute for yourself. At the end, we'll discuss, and if folks want to share their own use cases, we would love to hear about them. Couple of notes. Since this is like more of a casual setting, this is a working session, feel free to interrupt me and like ask questions using the chat, raising your hand, or coming off mute, whatever works. And there may be some periods of silence. That's fine and natural and not awkward. If it's the working session and we're talking and like bantering about questions, feel free to mute us if it's distracting to you. One of the first questions I like to answer is, do I have to be really good at writing prompts to like get the most out of AI? The answer is no, you don't need to be what they call a prompt engineer. So I call my method, and if you've been on my sessions before, you've heard this lazy girl prompting, and here's how it works. You just start typing your stream of consciousness, or better yet, my new favorite is I just dictate everything, and I use a tool called WhisprFlow. It works on your computer anywhere that you can type. So if you're in AI or if you're in an email, Slack, Teams, anything, anywhere you can type, you can use WhisperFlow. And it's a really good, it's really compatible with AI to get work done. These last two are especially important for using Cowork particularly, is letting Claude refine your prompt for you. So delegate as much as you can back to Claude. So you can get your brain dump out and then ask it, write me a prompt for Claude or ask me clarifying questions. So then it will fill any gaps that it has in what you're asking it to do before it starts building. And since Cowork is primarily going to be doing things for you, going through the refinement process of like letting it ask you questions is important so it knows what steps to take. I like to give visuals. In my past sessions, I've said that using Claude is like having a super genius who's parked in a van outside of wherever you are, and he's connected to you with a headset, and he's giving you a play-by-play of everything that you need to do to get something done. Well, with Cowork, it's different. Cowork is like having a 20-something-year-old super genius intern who is ready to do things for you. So instead of talking to Claude and asking it to tell you how to do something, Claude Cowork can just do the thing for you. So if you want to get something done, you're going to phone a friend, and that friend is Claude Cowork or your really high energy 20-something-year-old super genius intern. Okay, before I get into like the differences between Cowork and Code and Chat, I want to just start with a basic of like, what does Claude Desktop look like and how do you even access these different tools? So this is what Claude Desktop looks like. And there's three tools or tabs that you can open to work in. The first is Chat. The next is Cowork, which is the little checkbox one. And then the last one is Code. They each do different things, and we'll talk about what that is right now. So Chat is probably the Claude that you already know. You can think about this in like three different boxes. Using Chat is like thinking. You ask it questions, you can brainstorm, you have it help you refine like one email, you go back and forth, or maybe you use it like one time for like a one-off project or thing you have to do. And you also have the ability to attach files. So you can like click the little attach little paperclip icon and attach a file, and it will send you something back. And then maybe you download that file and re-upload it to wherever you need it. So that's a little bit like how chat works. Cowork is different. Cowork is like the doing. Remember, it's your intern. This is what we're here for today. The key difference is that Claude Cowork can read and write files directly on your computer. So it's going to actually work on your computer for you and it can edit things. It can also do things like tasks, like multi-step tasks it can execute on your behalf. Lastly, Claude Code is built for writing code or building. This is a lot of like what engineers use. It's what's called a command line tool because it's working in a code base and writing code. You can use Claude Code for other things like that what Cowork would do, but it's just really not as user friendly. And we'll talk a little bit more about those differences. Let me just pull up in my chat so I make sure I'm answering any questions. How does design fit in here? Margaret, this is one of those things where I'm saying that keeping up with these features and products is a full-time job. And because I have a full-time job, I actually haven't been able to use design yet, but it's like on my list. I'm itching, like biting at the chomp to like get to use design. I can't wait to try it, especially because I've already built some things and I want to see how they could look better with Claude design. So good question. I have not used it yet. If anyone has, maybe we could talk about that at the end. What makes Cowork different? Okay, so let me break down what makes Cowork different from some of these other tools. Number one, and I'm going to repeat this a few times because I feel like it's the biggest place people get caught in like understanding why Cowork is different than chat. So it's folder access. When you're working in Cowork, you literally have to choose a folder that it's going to work in on your computer. It can be an existing folder. It can be a folder that you create just for Cowork projects. But regardless, it is working directly on a folder on your computer. It can read those files. It can create new files. It can delete ones. It can edit them. So that's one thing that makes it different. Claude Chat cannot do that. You cannot, from the chat interface, say, hey, look at my downloads folder and tell me what's in there. It doesn't have the ability to do that. Next is parallel workers. So say you want your intern or Claude Cowork to do something for you and you tell it what you want it to do. Maybe the thing that you're going to do includes multiple steps. Say, for example, you have like 10 files that you want it to read. And let's say file number one takes 5 minutes to read. File number two takes 5 minutes to read. It's going to, like, if you were in chat, it would have to read each thing sequentially in order. There's no agent or intern there. But with Claude Cowork or with your agent, it can do all those things simultaneously. So it'll have multiple agents going at once, working on your task if it can, instead of just doing it in sequential order. The app must stay open. So the Claude Desktop app has to be open in order for it to work. So if your computer is asleep or closed, Claude Cowork can't do the thing. So if you want it to do something for you, say on a schedule, like create a daily brief for you every day at 5 p.m. or 9 a.m., it has to be open in order to do that. So if you close your laptop, it won't do that thing. Lastly, usage costs. When you're using chat, you can think about it like you're just exchanging text and like sometimes it'll give you a file, but those things might be lower cost for to exchange text with it or to like write you an email. When you're using Cowork and having it do things for you, it's going to take up a lot more tokens and a lot more of your usage because it's a heavier lift. It's actually doing the thing instead of just talking about something. So it's just something to be aware of when you're using Claude Cowork, especially like in the last couple, I'd say probably in like the last month or two, cost has gone up. And so this is like a concern for companies and just for yourselves for your usage. So just keep an eye on your usage costs when using Cowork. Denise asked, can you use Claude Web instead of desktop? So the only way that you can access Cowork is using the actual Claude Desktop app. And this is what it looks like. You cannot access Claude Cowork on like Claude.ai. You can't do it from a web browser. All right. Again, I'm going to repeat these things just a couple times to make sure. So local versus cloud. So when you're in Claude Cowork, the data lives on your computer. So there's no like cloud sync for project data, which answers Denise's question. So it's like if you go on a different computer and you open up Claude, it's not going to have your Claude Cowork data because all of that data is stored locally on your computer and not in the cloud. Same with your conversation history. It's on your machine and it's not necessarily synced to Anthropic servers. This is good to know for a couple of reasons. One is your data stays with you, so it's physically on your computer. So if it creates a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet or a folder for you, that's accessed on your computer. And if there's some like data disruption in the cloud, it's not subject to that. Like it lives on your computer. Next is if you switch computers, your projects don't come with you automatically. So just be aware of that. Okay. Again, attaching a file in chat. So you upload a file to a conversation when you're just using regular Claude Chat. It reads that in the moment and it doesn't like save any changes back to that file. It'll like give you a new file that you then have to download. Again, Cowork, you're working in a folder. You point Claude to a folder on your computer, and that's where it's going to be working. And this is also why Cowork can access multiple files at once because it sees the whole folder. So if you have 20 things in there, it can read them all at once, not just one file at a time. Okay. Cowork has the concept of projects. So you can think of a project as a dedicated workspace where everything stays together. So a project has four things. Number one is it's its own folder. So you can connect to a folder on your computer, and then Claude will work inside of that, and you can create a new project. So say, for example, you're in marketing and you want to work on something that's quarterly related. You can create a folder or a project in Cowork called Marketing Q2 folder. Custom instructions for each project, you can set rules for each project. So things like never delete files without asking, or when you create documents, put them in this specific subfolder. So when you have projects, you can give each project a custom set of instructions, and it's not going to get confused by the other projects or the other instructions you have that might not be related. Next is memory. Claude remembers what happens with previous tasks within that same project. So say you have a project folder and you have a bunch of tasks you're working on, it will remember so that you don't have to repeat yourself. Lastly is scheduled tasks. You can set up recurring work. So if you want something to happen every day at the same time, you can set up scheduled tasks in your project. Okay, we're getting closer to where I'm going to do the demo. So I know it's been a lot of talking. Before you start using Cowork, there's something called global instructions. Global instructions are something that you set once that apply to all of your projects. So say, for example, you never want Claude Cowork to delete any files without your explicit confirmation. You can apply that to everything you do within Cowork. You can add that instruction or any other instructions you want. And this is how you do that. So here, this is the Claude Desktop app. I clicked on Cowork tab, so this is the Cowork tab. Down here where it says my name, I'm going to click Settings and then select Cowork. And then right here is where you'll see global instructions. And you can click Edit this, and this is where you're going to add your global instructions. So again, you can add instructions like never delete files without my permission. Show me your plan before executing anything. I know people get really nervous about, oh, it has like access to my computer. It can actually do things. That's risky. Anthropic, the creators of Claude, they say, yeah, it is risky. And so it is just something to be aware of if you're going to have it doing things on your computer for you. And I will drop these instructions in the chat during the working session if you want to use them for yourself. Okay, when you get stuck, this is similar to what I was saying before in my previous sessions. You still have a super genius parked in a van outside of wherever you are, ready to give you a play-by-play of how to get unstuck. So even though you have the intern helping you, if getting started with Cowork is feeling like, you got lost on a step or something, don't forget you can always phone a friend, aka Claude, to help you through anything you get stuck on. Okay, so we're going to start with a demo, and this one's going to be low risk. I know you might be nervous about giving AI access to your files, so we can start with just a demo and I'll show you what I did. Um, Usually when I do these demos, it's like a cooking show. I've already had the conversation with Claude where I asked it to do these things. So I will show you what I asked Claude Cowork. So what I did was I started by clicking New Task here, and this is what it looks like. And it's going to say work in a project. Remember, it's working locally on your machine. So I clicked work on a project and I'm going to go find whatever folder it is that I want to work in. So you can choose a different folder. The folder I chose was my fake downloads folder. And the example I'm going to give is organizing files in my downloads folder, which is always pure chaos. I don't know if this is like this for everyone, but my downloads folder is insane. So I'm going to have my super genius intern organize my downloads folder for me in just a couple minutes. So here's what I asked Claude Cowork. The chat I sent said, help me rename all the files in my downloads folder so they are better organized. Ask me questions before starting. So remember, the ask me questions before starting is super important so that it doesn't go start doing something that is not helpful to you. So the questions it asked me for this specific task was, what naming style would you like for the files? And so I gave it how I wanted it, the year, the month, the day, and then a description of that file. It's super cool. So because it has access to your files, it can literally open up something and actually evaluate what that file is and rename it based on the content. So if you have like images of a receipt, for example, and there's nothing in the title that that's a receipt, it can look at it, understand that it's a receipt, and then rename it accordingly. For example, this one I had this exact situation where I had two receipts. How should I handle them? I said, look at them and rename them based on what they are. It asked, would you like files grouped by category using a prefix? I said, no, just clean up the file names. So let's look at where I started and where we ended up. This is my demo downloads folder. So I've got a bunch of random stuff in here. Some of it's kind of named, some of it's not named, and I want all of it to be uniform. And the first pass Claude gave me was this. So it used that format, the year, month, and day, and then it renamed them based on what they were. So that could have been the title that was already existing or by looking at the file. Shauna, great question, and that's exactly where I'm going next. Shauna asked, can you instruct it to always allow you to undo what it just did? Yes, you certainly can. And Shauna, I don't know like the black and white answer to this, but I did ask it to undo everything and it was able to do that, but I didn't have to give it that instruction. So I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so Claude says all 12 files have been renamed. That's what I just showed you. And then I said, just like Shauna brought it, undo it. Like I'm nervous about this, undo it. So it said done. All 12 files are back to their original names. And I didn't save it, but it did undo everything that it had done. And then I said redo it. And then it's like, okay. And then it put everything back to how it had organized it. Okay, so next thing I asked was, now that I have all my files renamed, I want this whole folder categorized with subfolders. So I said, now add folders so it's more organized. Ask me questions before taking action. So Claude says, how would you like the files grouped into folders? And I said by category or topic. And when it's asking me these questions, it's going to give me multiple choice that I can choose from or allow me to type in my response. So you're not just stuck with the multiple choice, you can give it explicit instructions. The next thing it asked was, should the date prefix stay in the file name once files are inside the folders? And I said, yes, I want the date in the file name when you move them to the folders. Okay, so based on the content of my files, it created 4 subfolders, a receipts folder, an artwork proofs folder, a personal folder, and a work folder. And before it changed anything, it confirmed that that worked for me, and I said yes. Okay, so it says all done. Your folder is now organized like this. Here's how many files are in each. Okay, so here's what the final looks like. Here's my downloads folder. It probably took less than a minute to do all of this. So if I click into each, I will see my files. All right. Next, the fun part. My downloads folder is constantly accumulating new files. So what if I wanted to go through this exercise every day? What you can do is create a scheduled task. So the next thing I asked it was create a scheduled task for this and run it on this folder every day at 5 p.m. So then it did some work in the background and this is what it set up. And this is where I can find it. I can either click here where it says created scheduled task, or in the future when I want to access this task, I can click here on the scheduled tab in the menu and I'll see all of my scheduled tasks in here. So I have my daily downloads organizer. Because I had this conversation with it and it knew exactly what I wanted, it wrote me instructions for this scheduled task. So this is my intern, my agent, who's every day at 5 p.m. going to do this task. And these are the instructions it has on what to do. If I want to edit these instructions, I certainly can. Like if I want to change the file name type or the folder structure, I can certainly do that and just update these instructions by clicking this edit icon. And here's my scheduled task name, the description, and the instructions it's going to follow and the steps it's going to take. And then it also has the folders that it's working in. And I can change the frequency here if I want it every day at, 10 p.m. at night after I've done with everything, I can do that. Okay, so this is an example of a simple way that it can access files, do things on your behalf, and create a scheduled task for you. Any questions before we go into the working session where we'll walk through this specific example?
I have one quick question.
Yeah.
So every time it runs the schedule, does that also eat up tokens?
Yes, it does,
Okay.
Adriana.
Okay. Thank you.
If you have a really intensive, like labor intensive task for it to do, like this one's pretty straightforward. It's not having to do a whole lot, but you can always go back and ask it. Like I can go to this thing and say, tell me how we can set up this scheduled task to be less token intensive slash less usage. And then it will give you some options and you can have it update that. So sometimes I like to get the thing working and then optimize it for tokens. Um, I'm going back to a question that Kayleen sent, which she says, I've been having Claude check my boss's calendar for new meetings and create Asana tasks with meeting briefs. Amazing. I've been doing that in Claude, but not Cowork. I want to set it up to do it on a recurring basis. Do I need to move it into Cowork for that? Claude is already doing it for me, but I want it to do it without me telling it to. So Sean, that was Kayleen. Yes. So I hope that answers your question that you can do this scheduled task, but just remember that your computer has to be on and open to be doing that for you. I feel like I saw at some point somewhere where you could actually move a chat from chat to Cowork. I don't know if that's true. I thought I maybe saw that somewhere. So that's a potential to look into if you already have an existing chat with this set up. Or Kayleen, go back to that chat and tell it to write you the instructions for your scheduled Cowork task.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Beth.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the demo file organization. If you're nervous about this and you don't want to just pull the trigger on your actual downloads folder, create a test folder and call it Claude test or whatever. Put some files in there, maybe 5 to 10 random files. It can be PDFs, documents, spreadsheets. And then open Cowork, and we're going to follow this same exact thing that I just went through and ask it to rename all the files in that folder so they're better organized. I will drop this prompt in the chat. So I'm gonna give us like 5 to 8 minutes to do this specific example. Feel free to come off mute if you have questions, or if you're already like past this, like this is already like elementary for you. I'm going to go through a slightly more intensive example after this one. We won't do it together today because it's more intensive, but I just want to show you like the possibilities of what can be done with a more intensive task similar to the one that Kayleen mentioned. So we'll do 5 to 8 minutes. Feel free to come off mute if you have any questions. I'll also be curious to hear if anyone does this successfully. Maybe come off mute or drop it in the chat that like you did it, it worked, it was a success. Natalie, that is hilarious. Mine is a chaos. That fair enough. Like it is so true. It really is pure chaos in there.
Yeah, I'm going through the prompt now. It's still, like looking through my stuff. And it said downloads, X number of files. This is the chaos zone. I'm like, okay, thanks.
That's so funny. Yeah, so Shauna followed up in the chat and said, when you click new project in Cowork, it asks if you want to import one from Claude Chat. So Kayleen, I'll be interested to see if that works for you. In the chat, I just sent an example of some global instructions if you want to update your Cowork settings and add instructions. And that will apply to all of your Claude Cowork sessions. All right, Caroline said, love this. It worked successfully for me. Can't wait to reorganize my entire download folder. Yes, 100%. Or just like organize everything on your computer and on all your work files. Same thing will work, you all, if you use like Dropbox and you've got like these massive folders in Dropbox that are super unorganized, you can do the same exact exercise because Dropbox is just like a folder on your computer. You can point it to that Dropbox folder and work in that Dropbox folder. Adriana in the chat says she is testing this on all 1,200 screenshots she has on her desktop. That's hilarious. How do you like? You probably can't even see your screen or your background because it's just all icons.
I can't. I have two screens and it just crosses both of them. And I'm like, that's a lot of screenshot.
All right, we'll give this 2 more minutes and then you can keep working on this too when I start talking again. But I'll give this 2 more minutes and show you another example. All right, anyone else have success with this? Able to organize a folder? I see Mitzi giving a thumbs up, Molly shaking her head. Danielle, yes, cool. Awesome. Yay. All right, great. Okay, so let's take a look at a little bit more of an intensive example, probably more like token heavy example. I created a scheduled task called Summarize Calendar and Inbox. Is that the one I'm showing? No, it's daily action items. That's the one I want to show you all. So what I wanted to do is I'm always trying to capture my action items from all of the places they exist. Two of those places that action items exist for me are Slack and Gmail. I use this on my personal Gmail, not my work, for the example. But what I did was I started a regular conversation in Cowork, and I told it what I wanted to do. I followed my lazy girl prompting. I used WhisprFlow to dictate, said, I've got Gmail and Slack. I want to capture my action items. And then every day, I want you to send me a report in my email and in Slack of all of the outstanding action items I have, anything I need to know based on what came in that day. So these are the instructions that it created. You'll see that these instructions are pretty long. And this is what I mean, like I am way too lazy to sit down and get this detailed with a step-by-step instruction, which is why I'm going to use Claude to write those instructions or create that prompt for me. So this is what it created. I'll just summarize here. It basically says you're running a daily action item sweep for Beth. Your job is to scan her Slack and Gmail from the last 48 hours, extract everything that requires action, and deliver a single organized digest via two channels. One, a Slack DM to herself, and two, an email draft to my email. So number one, it's going to scan Slack. It's going to scan Gmail next. It's going to flag some stuff. And here's all the stuff that I want it to flag, like somebody asking me to do something. If somebody mentions a deadline, if I replied to something and said I would do something, these are the types of things I want it to flag. And this can be anything you want. You can change this. Step three, it's going to build the digest content. It's going to compile everything, and then it's going to send me the summary via Slack and via email. Okay. There's some more specifics here. If I scroll down, this is just the format I want it sent to me in. And then for the frequency, again, I can choose to have this daily. Let's say daily at 9 a.m. One other thing to note is you will also be able to choose the model, just like when you're using chat and you get to choose whether you want to use Sonnet or Opus or Haiku. You can do the same thing here and select which model. Because this is a recurring task, it would actually probably behoove me to try this with Haiku as well to see if the output is just as good, because Haiku model uses less tokens than Sonnet. So if I was being very diligent, I should run this test and make sure that Haiku is not just as good, because I'll use that because it uses less tokens. If that's confusing at all, or anybody's not sure what I mean when I'm saying those things, let me know. Yasmin asks, will I share this prompt with y'all? Yes, I actually have it in a Google Doc and I will link it in the chat in just a second. So let's see the output. I ran this last night because I was doing some testing. So I ran this last night and I will show you what the Gmail draft looks like that it created. Okay, so because it has access to my Gmail, I have Gmail connected, I have Google connected as a connector with Claude. It has access to my email, and this is exactly what it created. Daily action item digest for Wednesday, April 22nd. It has 3 sections: urgent or with a deadline, waiting on me, or I committed to follow, or committed/follow up. These are all just random personal things. And a lot of this stuff there's so much junk in my personal, like none of this is actually really relevant. But for the demo, I just wanted to show what it could do and how it could pull action items. And then if I pop over to my Slack, I'll show you all the Slack message that it sent with the same digest. Let me move this over here. Okay. And you can do the same thing if you have the connector in Slack. It can send things directly to you in Slack. So this is what it looks like. Same exact thing. I have these few different sections here that it has in the digest. At the bottom, it says sent using Claude. Okay, I'm going to drop this prompt in the chat that you can use if you want to give this a try. Natalie says, for any Slack sweeping, is it possible to add a search for a specific emoji reaction? For example, if I act with eyes, do Claude/Slack have the ability to flag those, assuming it has the context on what the emoji means? Natalie, I want to say the answer, I believe, is yes. Yeah, I think that's definitely doable. The only caveat that I would actually ask Claude about is Slack API can be a little weird sometimes. So maybe it'll work on like DMs, channels, everything except for like when you're threaded. So when you have a message that has a big thread, if you do it on something in a thread, you want to make sure that it can pick those up as well before you build it. Okay, Rachel says definitely doable even in threads. Amazing. I'm glad that that's working now. Okay, so I'm pulling open the daily action items instructions. Again, Claude created this for me. You can replace the yellow highlights. Oops, I never finished this. You can replace the yellow highlights with your name and your information. I don't know what happened to my yellow highlights, actually. That's really weird. Essentially replace your name. Your name is not Beth, so you're going to want to replace all of these. And then also replace the email here. Just highlight all of these for you. So this is a good time. If this exercise isn't useful, if you don't use Slack, if you don't use Gmail, now is a good time in the working session to think about what other things you might want to automate with Cowork and start a chat, get your instructions or your prompt and see if you can get that working, whatever it is that you want to automate. Okay. In order for this to work, you will need to connect to Slack and Gmail. That is down here. If you click on your name in the desktop app and click settings, you're going to want to come to the left where it says connectors. You can click browse connectors and find Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive, Slack, anything that you want to connect to. Caitlin, yes, you can run multiple projects at the same time in Cowork. So you could have multiple agents, you could have multiple things scheduled for 9 a.m., multiple things happening throughout the day. You could be typing and working in one while another agent is running and doing a task for you. Amazing. All right, so I'm going to put myself on mute unless there's any questions for the next 5-ish minutes, and then we'll end the last 5 minutes with just a discussion if anyone wants to share if they tried something or if they already have something in Cowork. We'll have that discussion. If anyone has to drop off early, I'm going to drop the post-session survey in the chat now, so you can come to it and fill that out before you go. That would be great. Thank you. Okay, does anyone want to share if they tried this out for themselves, if they have a different co-work use case? Would love to hear.
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So I actually tried to do this a couple of weeks ago, where I wanted Claude Cowork to look at my because we use Microsoft 365 at work, so I wanted it to look at my to-do and to like kind of like daily look at it and let me know if I skipped anything, if I missed anything. Um, and for some reason, I keep running into some kind of issue where it says I need to use, I guess, Claude and Chrome extension.
Hmm.
Which, I did that. I did the extension and all of that, but for some reason it just keeps not it's not able to access todo.microsoft.com. And I'm not quite sure.
Okay. One thing I know about 365 is right now, doesn't answer your question, but I'll get there.
Mhm.
Right now it only has read access to the Microsoft like 365, like the email and things like that. So directly from the Claude portal, it can't like create an email draft for you. It can only like read what your emails are. But
Oh,
for the actual to do, like if to do is like a subset of the Microsoft product that like you can like tag things from your email and add them to a to-do list.
hmm
Yeah,
Yep,
I
exactly.
imagine it probably can't read that and doesn't have that integration.
Okay.
And sorry, did you say that you have the Chrome extension for Claude?
I did it, yeah, because it said I
Yeah.
had to do it, and then it's still, for whatever reason, it seems like it keeps saying once Chrome is connected, the next schedule run will complete. But I'm like,
Okay, so it seems like maybe the Chrome extension is not talking to like maybe your Claude account.
hmm
And you're signed in, like if you click up here, this little puzzle piece and it says
hmm
Claude, and it's
hmm
signed into the same account that you're accessing.
yeah, I had checked that before. I'll check it again, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I am.
You just click settings here.
Settings and Claude, yep. And let's see. Oh, now it's saying log in. But I was logged in. But
Yeah.
yeah, and for some reason, yeah, I see the right email address. Yep.
Okay.
Um, but I don't know, maybe it's a Microsoft thing.
And you were trying to run this from Cowork?
From Cowork to my Microsoft To Do app. Or I guess online. It
Yeah.
can't connect to my app. But
Yeah. One other thing to know about that, Jacqueline, is when you're using the Chrome extension, number one, this might not matter to you, but it is very slow. Like it's literally going to go click on that web page, take a screenshot, and then figure out how to click to the next thing. And it
yep.
probably is pretty token intensive.
Mm,
I imagine this feature is going to get a lot better in the coming months. Like it's going to be lightning fast, and probably less tokens. But right now, it's pretty cumbersome to like go to a website and do all of that for you.
hmm
I wonder if there's an easier way. Like I would almost ask it, like, is there a way to get the to-dos
hmm
without having to use Chrome extension?
Okay. I'll
But I
try that.
think that yeah, and I also think that sometimes there's an issue connecting like a conversation in Claude, the desktop app, with
hmm
a conversation that you have in the browser. Like, for example, if you were to start a chat right here in the Chrome extension, it's not going
hmm
to show up in your Claude desktop app, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
But yeah, so the answer is I'm not exactly sure why, but I would see if there's a way you could like get around having to use the Chrome extension at all.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. I'll try that. Thank you.
If you have to hop off, if you could please fill out the post-session survey, that would be great. The link is in the chat. Steve asks, can you also share the prompt for the weekly calendar audit? Oh, that one that I have is that oh, okay. So I had a one here, weekly calendar audit. I'll go through that one and send it. That one is a test I did for my actual executive, so I'll just make sure there's nothing in there, and then I'll send it in the recap email. The weekly calendar audit, essentially, I gave it a list of rules, like if there is no meeting link, if there is no meeting room, if there's supposed to be multiple attendees, but there's only one person on there, like it's going to flag those things. I haven't perfected that one yet, but I will share it in the recap. Any other use case examples anyone wants to share? Or questions about use cases? Alrighty, I'm going to throw up two last slides here. Just let's stay connected. I love doing these sessions. If you sign up for the newsletter on the website, I'll send out alerts of when the next sessions are. We also have a Slack community. So if you get stuck, also, I feel like when you start building, I find it exciting to share when you've built something and accomplished it and get excited about it and want to share it with folks. So feel free to join the Slack community and you can share it there. Or if you get stuck and need help, that's also a great place to ask for help. I also nerd out on all things AI happening like every day. So sometimes I'll post what I'm learning or cool new things that have come out. So drop that link in the chat. I'll also drop in my LinkedIn if you want to stay connected on LinkedIn. And then lastly, the post-session survey, if you could fill this out before you drop off, that would be great because I know nobody ever comes back to surveys after they leave. So if you could fill that out. Thank you so much all for joining. I really appreciate it. Share your wins. I get excited about them and I'll play some music while you fill out this survey. Thanks, everyone.